Hey everybody, Drilling in the Name of here, and what's the deal with bunkers? And when I say that, I don't mean why do people make them. I'm asking why bunkers have become arguably the most contentious topic in the Deep Rock community. The mere mention of bunkers always sparks fierce debate, with pro-bunker people saying that they're a powerful strategy and helpful in extreme situations, and anti-bunker people saying that they're boring, risky, and detrimental to your growth as a player. So today we're going to take a deep dive into Deep Rock's most controversial topic, the bunker. I'll be going over some bunker layouts, discussing the pros and cons of bunkers, debunking some bunker myths that drive me absolutely nuts, and hopefully bringing the supporters and detractors of bunkers towards some common ground. So I've noticed over the past couple of months that my first video has exploded in views, and it's definitely not because it's a great video. I've been doing this long enough now that I can look back at some of my older videos and wonder at times, what the hell was I thinking? From a fart noise to distract from a bad impression, or ending my BUNKIE tutorial with what looks like footage from a Game Boy camera, I feel like my videos have come a long way. Though I did get a little nostalgic looking back at those old videos. I have a new computer now, and I could not figure out how to deactivate Windows. But I miss that old watermark. Unless... Much better. Getting back to my emergency BUNKIE video, as a singularly focused 2-minute tutorial, I can only assume that people were seeking out the subject matter itself. I wondered if this had become a hot topic again, so I went over to the subreddit to see how the conversation on bunkers was going these days, and it's not great. Now, I'm not going to share any of the vitriol because it's honestly kind of crazy how angry people were getting. It was a little disheartening to see people behaving that way, especially in a community that's generally regarded as a positive one. But that wasn't the only disturbing trend I noticed. I was getting mentioned a lot. I started to wonder if I was partly to blame in some small way. Then I remembered that I learned about bunkers from a friend who saw it on Reddit. This brings me to my first point, which is that people are going to bunker whether you like it or not. Whether it's stumbling across one of my videos or stumbling upon the strategy organically, people are going to do this. I know that may be frustrating to a lot of you, but that's just the reality of an online co-op game. Not everyone you play with is going to approach the game the same way you do. And I get it. When you're in an assignment mission and an inexperienced player does something dumb and causes your team to fail, it sucks. But if your reaction is to just shit on that person and then kick them, they'll likely leave not even knowing what they did wrong and probably just go do it again in some other server. I've said it many times, but this game doesn't provide a lot of instruction outside of the basics.
Let's get familiar with the basics.
That's great in the sense that you get to have those little light bulb moments where you discover your playstyle naturally, but it also means that we as veterans have at least some degree of responsibility of explaining the finer details to the greenbeards we encounter. Now, I did get a lot of pushback to that notion on the subreddit, but in my opinion, you can either choose to give a little guidance, like many of us got, or just be mad, I guess. For my part, I tried to create bunker videos that could appease both sides of the issue. In my emergency BUNKIE video, I created a very simple bunker designed to help get you through a tough swarm. There was no mission objective involved, and no one on the team would be forced inside. I took that concept a step further with the BUNKIE tutorial, where I created a bunker underneath the objective so that everyone on the team could choose if they wanted to be in it or not. Going back to the idea that people are always going to bunker, I think it's important to teach ways that are not only effective, but also don't require the team to participate. It's probably equally important to explain why certain bunker techniques are ineffective. Let's start with the bad. The worst strategy is unfortunately probably the most well-known. This involves satcheling an objective down and sealing it in with platforms. A few years ago, this was really effective and a great example of bending the rules of Deep Rock, but it just doesn't work the way it used to. Now there are multiple enemies that can dig, and exploders can punch holes in the platforms which let enemies in. The main issue with being completely sealed in is you just don't know what's going on outside. And if you just let all the enemies accumulate throughout the objective, you eventually have to leave and fight all of those enemies. It's also especially bad if your platforms get destroyed, because the bugs will pour in right above your head and can immediately path in any direction. I've seen a few videos lately where a fellow content creator gets stuck in one of these types of bunkers and then uses the footage as an attempt to invalidate the strategy as a whole. But in the words of Literate Max when I ate cottage cheese for the first time, he got the bread in a can, then wrote off all bread. Which... it's actually pretty funny. But much like my choice of cottage cheese, it's not really fair to say something sucks while only showcasing the worst of that something. And in this case, it really is the worst type of bunker. Simply put, this is a dead strategy. I think this is also where a lot of the cries of boring come from, because it absolutely is boring. Doing this bunker effectively means completely avoiding enemies, so you just end up waiting out the timed event. As I mentioned before, my under-bunkie was supposed to be a fair compromise to this strategy. Instead of dropping the objective down and sealing it in, you simply build a bunker underneath the objective. When done right, you're underneath the objective but inside the zone, while the other half of the zone remains on top where anyone else can choose to fight from. I do still think it's a fair compromise, but as I mentioned in that video, if you split the team, you split the swarm. Unfortunately, this usually doesn't end up in a 50-50 split because the bugs will take the easier path to the team, which is usually above ground. For that reason, overall, I will admit that I don't think it's a good idea to do this on the higher HAS levels unless the entire team understands the concept. But if you're in good communication with your team and 3 of you are in the under-bunkie and your scout is zipping around looking for things like bulk detonators and nemesis, this absolutely works. However, if you aren't communicating and you get into a bad situation, this 100% can end your mission. So, as you should always be doing, make sure to ask the team if this is something they want to do, and if so, clarify you're making it this way so that everyone understands. And if they're not into it, there are certainly many other ways to transform the terrain to your advantage. Check out the mission-specific section of my drill guide for more on that. So bunkering objectives on the higher HAS levels in public servers may not be the best idea, but that doesn't mean other bunkers aren't worthwhile. My first bunker tutorial is still a great way to ride out a tough swarm. You simply dig a tunnel straight into the wall, satchel the ceiling, open up the entrance, and flatten the floor. Then you can dig a spot for Molly and a little foxhole for yourself, and do it all in about 20 seconds or less. Some people recommend digging a pit in the entryway to catch Kronar, and although Kronar can wreak havoc in one of these things, it just doesn't happen very often, and it makes getting into the bunker a little tougher for the rest of your team. Digging the initial tunnel at an upward slope works just fine in my opinion. This strategy is nice because it's really easy and nobody has to follow you in if they don't want to. The wrong way to do this is to satchel the floor at the end of your tunnel. This puts the bowl underneath the entrance, meaning you won't be able to see what's coming and you leave the bugs the high ground. If there's only 2 of you in the area, you can dig something even quicker and easier. Dig a straight tunnel, then dig a couple pockets at 45-degree angles at the end. This gives you and another person a safe spot to shoot from with no risk of friendly fire, and a long choke point to funnel enemies into. Now that we have the most common layouts out of the way, let's talk bunker myths and misconceptions. The number one most annoying comment I see over and over and over again is that bunkers spawn a bulk detonator. And I don't know what else to say besides they don't. Not only has this always been completely untrue, I kinda don't understand how this became such a prevalent myth to begin with. The environment in DRG is fully destructible. We pickaxe, drill, and satchel our way through it. It's kind of what we do. I use satchel charges constantly, sometimes just to get through compacted dirt when I'm bored. So I don't understand how anyone thinks the game can differentiate between a big hole made from terraforming or combat or whatever, and a big hole made to hide in and fight from. Obviously me just saying that won't change a lot of minds, so I consulted one of Deep Rock's premier modders, Assembly Storm. He invited me to his Discord server, Practical DRG, which is devoted to digging into the technical aspects of Deep Rock. I asked them about this, and out of all of their research into spawn mechanics, they couldn't find anything to suggest that the game spawns specific enemies to counter a bunker. Viren, who is one of the admins of this server, went on to say that spawn logic is purely deterministic and doesn't interact with players at all. Meaning that outside of specific spawn triggers like popping an egg, nothing you do as a player affects what the game spawns. So while bulk detonators can certainly cause a problem if you're in a bunker, they do not spawn just because you created one. So stop saying that. Quick side note, I'm working on the final edits for this video and I've been getting super annoyed because the only official image I can find for the oppressor is super low res. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. I was doing one final search to see if I could find a better image file when I stumbled upon the common misconceptions page of the DRG wiki, which I'd somehow never seen. And there just happens to be a section on this very topic which confirms everything we just talked about. It even includes a link to a dev stream which pretty much puts an end to this myth.
Is it true that you multiply the detonator spawn rate when a driller builds a bunker? No.
I think those things are pretty hard to detect. Especially in a game where you dig a lot.
So if that doesn't put an end to all of this bulk nonsense, I'm not sure anything will. Back to the video. Now obviously a bulk detonator showing up to the party is an issue, but as a driller, you should be prepared for one. In the event that you can't hold one back, make sure you designate a spot to drill an escape tunnel from so you can get your teammates out of there. The next most common enemy naysayers will mention is the Oppressor. Now this enemy does dig to you and it does have unbreakable armor everywhere but its butt. Now this certainly suggests that it was designed to counter bunkers, but I think it's important to note that it was introduced in update 27 at the end of 2019. As I said before, the completely sealed in bunker was all the rage a few years ago. And if you watch their pathing behavior, they will definitely dig to you from anywhere if you are in a space that is completely sealed off. However, this doesn't actually impact the emergency bunkie or under bunkie strategies. If there's an opening to the bunker you're in, they'll actually path all the way around to that opening. Even if you spawn them in an area that is significantly closer for them to dig to you, they'll turn around and take the long way. So while they definitely would be a bunker buster if they came smashing in behind you, they're actually polite enough to come in through the front door if you have one. Some of you might still see a problem here, but if you're making a bunker, it means you're a driller. And as a driller, you have so many options for slows and DOTs. Whether you freeze it with the cryo, or slow it down with the crisper and sticky flames, or cover the tunnel with sludge and light it with burning nightmare, an oppressor really shouldn't be that much of a challenge in this situation. Not to mention the other classes also have numerous ways to slow down enemies. Engineers can throw prox mines and set up dual turrets with turret arc. Scouts can use IFGs and taser bolts with their bolt shark. And if shit really hits the fan, a gunner can always completely block enemies out with a shield. Unfortunately, while this will turn away even a bulk detonator to give you a chance to escape, this does completely seal off your bunker. This means that digging enemies can revert to digging a new path to you once the shield has blocked the entrance to your bunker, so this is best used as a last resort. With all or even some of these strategies combined, this is an undeniably powerful strategy. And even on Has 5, it's extremely unlikely that any number of enemies will be able to penetrate the bunker. Alright, so a proper bunker works, a bunker doesn't equal a bulk, and oppressors maybe aren't the bunker busters they were designed to be. So what else you got? Another common criticism of bunkers is that they're detrimental to your growth as a player. Axis Kronos made a great video detailing his take on bunkers, which I'll link to in the description. I like this video a lot. Not because he was kind enough to use my tutorials as examples of proper bunkers, but because he offers a truly groundbreaking take. He finds bunkers boring and antithetical to what he enjoys about Deep Rock, but also acknowledges that they're extremely powerful and absolutely do work when done properly. And I'm actually not being sarcastic, because this is often what gets lost in the discourse surrounding bunkers. It seems like everyone has to either think they work and enjoy using them, or think they don't work and do not enjoy using them. And I really appreciate the fact that Axis can vouch for their effectiveness even if he chooses not to use them. He says in his video that he enjoys the creativity in the combat and movement of DRG, and in my video I talk about how much I enjoy the creativity of the terrain manipulation for tactical advantage. I think this perfectly highlights one of Deep Rock's greatest strengths, which is that this game offers a truly diverse experience. I think it's awesome we even have the option between transforming the terrain for our advantage or just running and gunning in the face of a swarm. It allows each of us to play the game how we want. Back to bunkers being detrimental to your growth as a player, Axis does admit that this is mostly in reference to people who consistently rely on bunkers. He wasn't referring to me here, but this is definitely a criticism that's been directed at my videos. In my defense, my video is called the Emergency Bunkie tutorial, not the I heard a bug in the next room and now I'm scared and hiding in a hole tutorial. I specifically mention how this is for extreme situations like lethal enemies, Mactera Plague, or just being really low on ammo. As far as that last part, things used to be a lot different when I made that video. Now this is purely anecdotal, which I've gotten in trouble for not disclaiming in the past, so to differentiate, I'm gonna put on more glasses and pretend to read from this giant book. You see, a couple years ago when I was using bunkers frequently and posted that video, Nitro was not as prevalent as it is now. Back then, Masnothis often used to be scouting around at the end of a mission for any Nitro we may have missed so we could get one last resupply. But these days, it's pretty common for me to end a mission with more Nitro than I could possibly use. Again, this is anecdotal, but it would stand to reason that as the game increased in popularity, certain aspects could have been made easier to make the game more accessible to a new and larger audience. I'm not necessarily saying that's what happened, but a big part of bunkering back then was just to conserve ammo. If you were really low and didn't have enough Nitro for a resupply, a bunker was a great way to power through a swarm without burning through the last of your bullets. It still works for that purpose, but I do think part of me using bunkers less and less over time is that Nitro seems a lot less scarce. That being said, the final criticism I'll address is that using bunkers makes you a coward. And when I say coward, I mean one of several words I don't care to repeat. Now, I'm normally very diplomatic in my videos, but get out of here with that cringy, try-hard, wannabe pro-gamer bullshit. Deep Rock is a game that thrives on creativity and tactical diversity and encourages you to play the game the way you want to play. And it's not even a competitive game. It's a PvE game where everyone is working towards the same goal. Gold. It's gold, right? I mean, shit, even mission control's on board.
Bunker up, team. Swarm incoming.
Honestly, I wouldn't even entertain this at all, but I recently did an audit of my held for review comments and found some pretty distasteful stuff, all of which was in reference to my bunker videos. Look, if it's that important people play the way you want to play, be the host and add very specific notes to your server. Outside of that, please just acknowledge and accept the fact that you're playing a game online with other people, and they may not do things the way that you do. As long as they're doing their own thing in a way that's respectful and not negatively impacting the team or the mission, that's really the best you can hope for in an online co-op game. I really hate that this topic has become so divisive, but I really hope more than anything that this video helps bridge the divide between the two camps. I think clearing up a lot of the confusions and misconceptions about bunkers, and detailing strategies that both work and don't force the the team to abide will go a long way. But most importantly, remember to be nice out there. Hoxus is a rough place, and we really should be sticking together in the face of our enemies. Well, that's hopefully the last video I ever make on bunkers, and I think I've actually convinced myself. So I'm gonna take my beer and bunker up. How could anyone not like bunkers? They're so cozy. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and please take a second to like and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And as always, rock and stone, brothers and sisters. Oh, I shouldn't have sealed it in.